crème brûlée, is a baked custard with a hard sugar crust you are supposed to crack. It is a signature of French-style pastry. The build is simple: egg yolks, cream, sugar, vanilla. Custard sets through gentle coagulation, which is why it is baked in a water bath to prevent curdling. Then the payoff. Sugar is torched or broiled until it caramelizes into a glassy shell. The brittle crack is the feature. Without it, it is just custard. Donuts are fried dough, rings, or filled rounds, made with either yeast or chemical leavening, and those two paths create two very different textures. Yeast donuts rise through fermentation, trapping air and creating a light interior with a slight chew. Cake donuts skip fermentation and use baking powder or baking soda, making them denser with a tighter crumb. Frying does the final expansion. Water turns to steam, puffing the inside while the outside sets into a crisp shell. Cheesecake is a dessert built on soft cheese, usually cream cheese or ricotta, mixed with sugar and eggs, then set into something that eats like a sliceable cream. Versions of sweetened cheesecakes go back to ancient Greece, and the Romans helped spread the idea across Europe. What matters today is how it sets, because that decides whether it feels light and airy, or dense and custardy. No-bake cheesecakes set cold. They rely on gelatin, whipped cream, or both to firm up in the refrigerator, which keeps the texture mousse-like and soft. Baked cheesecakes set with eggs. In the oven, egg proteins coagulate into a custard structure, turning the filling into a thicker, richer slice that holds its shape. New York cheesecake pushes the density, heavy on cream cheese and baked to a firm set with a lightly browned top. Basque cheesecake goes the opposite direction on purpose, baked extremely hot so the surface darkens while the center stays soft and almost molten. That bitter edge balances the sweetness. Brownies are chocolate-forward baked squares sitting between cake and fudge. The entire argument comes down to one ratio: fat versus flour. Fudgy brownies run high in fat and low in flour. More butter and chocolate means less gluten development, so the crumb stays dense and moist. Cakey brownies flip that, with more flour plus leavening to create lift and air pockets, pushing the texture closer to a soft chocolate cake. Move the ratio even slightly, and you land in a different dessert. Tiramisu is a cold, layered Italian dessert built from espresso-soaked ladyfingers and mascarpone cream. The name translates to "pick me up," and that is the point. Coffee plus cream assembled and chilled, never baked. Ladyfingers absorb espresso fast, so the trick is soaking them enough to turn tender without turning them to mush. Mascarpone whipped with egg yolks and sugar becomes rich, but still airy. After chilling, cocoa powder finishes it with bitterness and aroma, keeping the sweetness in check. Flan is a caramel-topped custard that is especially common across Spain and Latin America. It is made to be baked, chilled, and inverted, so the caramel becomes the sauce. The water bath keeps the custard smooth instead of grainy. Caramel is cooked until it darkens into a bittersweet syrup, poured into the mold, and then the custard goes on top. As it cools, the caramel loosens, so when you flip the flan, it coats the surface in a glossy sauce that tastes toasted, not just sweet. Baklava is layers of phyllo dough and nuts drenched in syrup, built into a dessert that is crisp, sticky, and rich at the same time. It is strongly associated with the Ottoman era, the Middle East, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Paper-thin sheets are brushed with butter, stacked, layered with nuts, then baked until crisp. Pour syrup while the pastry is hot so it soaks in and binds the layers without turning the top soggy. Great baklava stays crisp on top and syrupy underneath. Pavlova is a giant meringue with a crisp shell and a marshmallow-like center, topped with whipped cream and fruit. It was created in the 1920s in honor of Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova during her tour of Australia and New Zealand, and both countries claim to have invented it. It's baked low and slow, so the outside dries into a shell while the inside stays soft and chewy. A little cornstarch or acid can stabilize the foam, and sharpen that crisp versus soft contrast. Fruit finishes the job. Acidity keeps the sweetness from feeling heavy. Macarons are a French-style sandwich cookie made from almond flour, egg whites, and sugar. Crisp on the outside with a soft chew inside. The structure depends on technique more than ingredients. Egg whites are whipped with sugar into a stable meringue, then folded with finely ground almonds and powdered sugar until the batter flows in thick ribbons. The shells rest until a skin forms, which helps create a smooth top and the signature feet during baking. When they're right, the shell shatters slightly, the center stays tender, and the filling turns everything creamy after resting. Churros are fried dough sticks with crisp ridges on the outside and a soft interior. They are often dusted in cinnamon sugar. Churros are most associated with Spain, and they are popular across Latin America. The shape does real work. Churros are piped through a star tip, which creates ridges that crisp aggressively in hot oil. The interior expands as water turns to steam, puffing the center. That is why cinnamon sugar clings so well. Every groove holds it. Mochi is glutinous rice transformed into an elastic dough, chewy, stretchy, and designed to resist biting. It's been made in Japan for over 1,000 years and is linked to New Year traditions. Steamed glutinous rice becomes intensely sticky as starch hydrates. Pounding forces the grains into one cohesive mass, smoothing it into a stretchy dough. The chew is deliberate, which is why mochi works so well as a wrapper for fillings. Panna cotta is cooked cream set with gelatin, with no eggs, and no custard structure. It is most associated with northern Italy. It is designed to wobble, not slice. Gelatin dissolves into warm cream and then forms a network as it chills, trapping the liquid in a delicate set. Because there are no eggs, the flavor stays purely dairy-forward, which is why panna cotta works best with sharp toppings like fruit, coffee, or caramel. Millefeuille, also called a Napoleon, is puff pastry layered with cream, built on lamination. Butter is folded into dough repeatedly, creating thin, alternating layers of fat and dough. In the oven, steam forces those layers apart, while butter keeps them separated and crisp. With pastry cream between the sheets, you get the classic contrast, brittle flakes against smooth cream. Eclairs are choux pastries, elongated shells filled with cream and topped with icing or chocolate. They are a classic of French pastry, and they rise on steam, not yeast. Choux dough is cooked once on the stove, then baked with a high water content. In the oven, water becomes steam and inflates the pastry into a hollow shell, while eggs set the structure. That hollow center is the purpose. It is built to be filled with pastry cream, whipped cream, or custard. Trifle is a British layered dessert built in a clear dish, with sponge cake, custard, fruit, and whipped cream. The sponge is soaked, so it stays moist. Custard adds richness, fruit adds acidity, and cream softens the edges. Resting lets the layers meld just enough that each spoonful hits multiple textures at once. Gulab jamun is an Indian dessert of fried dough balls soaked in scented syrup. The end result is soft, syrupy, and intensely aromatic. The dough is made from milk solids, khoya or milk powder, kneaded with a little flour and ghee. After frying, the warm syrup, often perfumed with rose water and cardamom, moves into the center, turning the balls tender and sponge-like without falling apart. Rice pudding is milk, sugar, and rice cooked until thick, and it shows up everywhere because the science is universal. As rice cooks, starch gelatinizes. The grains absorb liquid, swell, and release starch into the milk, which thickens it. Some rice turns silky and creamy, while other rice stays more grainy and structured. Same method, different texture. Meringue is egg whites and sugar whipped into glossy peaks, and the method decides stability. French meringue is whites whipped with sugar, light but fragile. Swiss meringue warms whites and sugar over a water bath first, then whips into a denser foam. Italian meringue streams hot sugar syrup into whipping whites, partially cooking them as it goes, producing the most stable structure for piping and holding shape. Tangulu is a Chinese street snack, fruit on skewers coated in hardened sugar syrup. It is a dessert defined by one sound, the snap. Heat syrup to the hard crack stage, coat the fruit quickly, and it cools into a thin glass shell. When you bite in, the sugar shatters first, then the fruit hits, tart, juicy, and cold against brittle sweetness. From custards to fried dough to sugar shells, desserts are defined by the science behind them. Let us know in the comments what we should cover next. Thanks for watching.